Hey, welcome back to the Kingsway Podcast.
Welcome.
It's been a minute. It's good to see you, Ryan.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
Sorry we missed last week. Had a little family stuff going on.
Yep.
Wife got her foot cut. Had to have some surgery.
Cut clean off. No. It was a fierce battle. No. But you should see the other guy, you know?
Had some surgery. Wasn't necessarily planned, but it wasn't necessary.
It was planned, but it wasn't
Wasn't an accident.
Yeah.
Kind of spur of the moments and things need to be fixed. And she's doing much better now, but just didn't.
She needed the drive belt changed in her foot.
Yes. Well, and being a dad of 3 and then split level home, it has been a wild, wild ride. But we're back.
Yep.
We're back. I've been reading a book that is, as I told Ryan, I was like, this is like, I don't feel judged because it's not a judgy tone, but it definitely was convicting in the sense of like, this is probably one of those books that I probably need to reread like every year, if that makes sense. It was good though. It was good. I didn't quite get it finished, but I got enough to where I feel like I got credit. You know, I passed the book reading test.
Yeah. You got above average, above a C.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also like 10 minutes away from finishing the book. So maybe that disqualifies us, but we've listened to most of it. I've listened to this author talk on podcasts for a long, long time. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of the content he already set out in the beginning of the book, definitely there will be no surprises.
No. And obviously the style of book has been something we've read previously, on getting out of bed, and some of this stuff.
That was more poetic than like directly helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but application points weren't I would say done in the same way. That was, I guess, flushing some of the same stuff out. This felt very poignant, very direct. Like you couldn't get away from it.
We haven't done this before. With all the books that we've read and then reviewed, we haven't legitimately rated them on a number scale.
Yeah.
But I feel like if I were to do that, I'm going to use the Goodreads metric, 0 out of 5. Mm-hmm. So up to 5 stars or whatever. Yeah. I would legitimately give this a 5 out of 5. It's not fiction. It wasn't like a compelling, thrilling story with a bunch of whatever, but in its usefulness and also how easily it's written. It's an easy read compared to like some more high theological, heady doctorate research kind of whatever. It's meant to be able to be understood by everybody and applicable by everybody. And I feel like it was. And so it was both really convincing and easy to follow.
Yeah. I would definitely not. I would only knock points off only because of my preferences to how the type of books, not because of the way that the book failed in doing what it intended to be. If you want me to rate it on what I felt like it set out to do, if it did it, I'm going to give it a 5. If you want me to rate it on preference of the style of book that I enjoy reading, that like I can't put down, that I want to finish.
There was a lack of Vikings in this book.
Yeah, no,
not a single Viking.
I like more like a Malcolm Gladwell or a little bit more of a style that's like a little bit more playful and has a little bit more of like points at the end of stories or points at the end of like case studies. This had a little bit of those quotations, stories, scientific data. But it definitely had its moments where it got really intense and deep. Yeah. And then it had moments where it stayed light and fun and knew what it was. I'd give it like 4.5, maybe a 4.25 stars.
I feel like it did everything you're saying, but also I haven't read a Malcolm Gladwell book before. So maybe there's an even more masterful way to do it. But I feel like it did do those things, even if it could have.
It's very self-aware. The author's very self-aware. He knows, the moments where he records the conversations with his wife over some of the stuff, and the examples from his own life. They definitely line up. I think there was a little bit more of like I wanted a little bit of mystery around some of it. Yeah. There was just a lot of directness.
For the entertainment of the reader, but for me. This I'm sort of in my head compiling so I'm not the youth pastor at Kingsway. That's John Flowers, at least at this point in time. I don't know why I said that. That sounds way mysterious, like I know something secret. I just mean like
we're putting this on the internet.
In 30 years,
yeah.
I don't know. So I feel the same way. This is a tangent. I feel the same way about church staff websites. Church websites, you go to the staff section, and in their bio it says, "I have 3 kids, ages this, this, and this."
Yeah.
When did you write that?
Yep.
That's not going to be true in a year.
Yep.
None of that's going to be true in a year.
Yep.
So don't be like, I've been married to my wife for 20 years. In a year, no, you haven't.
Yep.
So say like I've been married since this year, and then let the reader do the math so it's always true. That's all I'm really getting at. Anyway, that's just a pet peeve. I need to be more self-controlled about how I feel when that happens. But for me, because I serve in youth group and have for the whole 5 years I've been here, I'm always thinking about like, what do I need to be a better example for these kids, and what do these kids need when they want to take some serious steps in their faith? And so in my head, I'm just compiling this like Mount Rushmore-ish list of resources. I feel like this would go on there, and this would be near the top, where it's like, if you're going to be a healthy and a mature Christian, it might feel better to let your spiritual growth be like, oh, I don't believe in a literal 7-day creation anymore. But really, that's just a self-serving dopamine hit of like faith, holding on to faith, but also looking down at people and like, oh, well, you believe this, so you're not that serious. But like, this book is actually constructive in a really helpful way in your habits and in your person, rather than just like, how can I dunk on people with possibly true ideas that don't really change God's goodness or the Christian life. Like,
oh, this feels foundational.
Yeah.
In my mind, as I was reading it, I was like, he never mentions any of these people I'm about to mention in the book.
Yeah.
But because of the current culture that we're in, and the kind of the last 2 to 3 to 4 years of the culture that I've been in while like joining the kind of gym bros world.
Yeah.
The David Goggins, the Tates, the Petersons, the like people that are trying to get you to like be the best version of yourself and like
do hard stuff,
do the
idiot.
Hard thing all the time and like stay hard and and like
who's gonna carry the boats in the logs,
like make your bed and then go conquer the world.
Yeah.
And like this felt like this sounds terrible. So, this feels like the like dad from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, like going like, okay, I'm gonna figure this out, but like from a scientific, spiritual level.
Yeah.
And then break it down to a place where like by the end of this book, I really feel like he removes almost all excuses of like, if you want to do this, this is how you'd have to do it.
And that was some of your complaint in the style of the book. At the same time, that's like my favorite part of the book because he talks so much about habits and the excuses people have for them. And by taking away the mystery, it's like, oh, yeah, I could be doing that. Oh, yeah, it is really simple that these other addictive habits are taking me away from these.
I wanted a case study or two in the book where it's like so-and-so was trying to change and this is how they implemented one of these things and this is what happened.
He had case studies, but they were like a story of a case study the like mentioning that a study happened and in 3 sentences like laid out the whole thing rather than like different leadership books will have like leadership fables in there, and
or like an interview with somebody that's like has the quality that he's talking about.
Yeah.
There's just a little bit of like bring flesh to it. This felt like it just was bones and like really solid structure, which is awesome. Again, some people, that's why I say it's preference, because some people that's fluff to them. They're like, I don't need that. I just need give me the meaty version. It's very similar to like the book that we read not too long ago, with the concept of like, do you want the fable of how we're going to get to this leadership style book? Or do you just want
Patrick Lencioni, The 6 Working Geniuses?
Do you just want the nuts and bolts? Some personalities want the fable because it makes more sense. I'm that personality.
Yeah.
And so
I'm not. I'm like,
give you the nuts and bolts.
Don't infantilize me. Just tell me the stuff.
Yep. Well, in order to make the book make sense, sometimes for me, I have to see how it plays out in the real world. Yeah. And it also helps me see it when I encounter it.
Honestly, I feel like I'd be good with both. I just want the engine first, and then see how it runs later. seeing how it runs first, I'm like, I can't contextualize any of this stuff. There's no cardboard boxes in my mind to put any of this stuff
I totally get that, and that is an absolute preference, because for me, once I get to the end of the fable, then he starts pointing things out. I can go back, and now I can lay it into the fable, and it makes sense to me. But again, that's purely from an entertainment standpoint, because I found myself having to take breaks from this and like having to let myself digest things. And that normally just means it's either a very applicable book or a very dense theological book, or it's just hitting you with so much stuff very quickly.
It's moving really fast.
Mm-hmm. Which also I was reading it at 1.7 or 1.8 at times.
Yeah.
So
there's some really important concepts in here.
Yeah.
Again, I'm going to repeat myself from earlier episodes, and maybe if I re-record the beginning of this, an earlier part of this episode. But it's okay if you haven't listened to this book. If you have, we're going to talk about it and discuss it and remind you of stuff. If you haven't, we're going to sell you on it with points from the book. So it's okay that you haven't.
I don't even think we've said the name of the book yet. I know it's under the title right now.
I was thinking about re-recording the intro.
Yep.
That way we say it and then I have a spot for the title sequence.
Sure.
Hopefully I cut this out later, but if I don't, it's because we want to give you a behind the scenes look at how this podcast is made. But there were a couple really, really, really important concepts in there that I want to make sure we talk about here and just reiterate from the book. One was him talking about keystone habits. You remember that?
Yeah.
Talking about how, I think it was in the story of Benjamin Franklin saying, I'm just going to get good at all virtue. I'm going to master virtue, and I'm going to do it in these 13 different ways. And then failing super miserably, trying to do all of them. And then trying to slow down. I'll do them over 13 weeks, adding one every week and really focusing on that one. And still failed a lot, but did a little better.
Yep.
And using that story to springboard into keystone habits, that there are habits that help you constructively help you build other habits. Self-control being one of those habits that's a keystone. But then in our Christian faith, bringing up that like scripture reading and then bringing up data on why is a keystone habit. Prayer is a keystone habit. What do you think about when you heard some of that stuff?
Well, we did that series Linchpins not too long ago, which felt very similar, where it's like, it's not necessarily the thing that's carrying all the weight of what you're trying to change, but it's the thing that makes all the difference on your way to change. And so for me, all I kept thinking was like, yeah, that's what we've been talking about. Like I was at the dentist the other day, and one of the things that they'll tell you at the dentist now more than ever is like, you want a healthy heart. It's not eat Cheerios. It's like floss your teeth. And it's a keystone to a healthy heart, because it's the biggest vein in your entire body runs through your gums. And your gums are so close to that vein that the plaque and the things that build up between your teeth are actually one of the easiest ways that your heart gets clogged.
Yeah.
And so the easiest way to make your heart healthy is just to floss every day. It's a keystone habit that, of course, exercise, of course, diet, of course, all that stuff. But it's like, if you just did this one little thing, it would change, heart health. And I think he's talking about spiritually with a lot of different habits that we're trying to change.
Yeah.
We forget to do the smallest, easiest linchpin thing, keystone thing.
And that keystone thing is like, once you develop this habit, it's not that it's extra effective more than the other habits, but it's that it carves out more space for you to be able to start doing different habits that like you've talked about in your fitness journey where you would work out really hard. And once you've done that, it was so much easier to do other hard things because you're like, well, I already did something harder than that thing.
Absolutely.
The like tired, achy, I don't want to do whatever. I don't want to take out the trash.
Yep.
Well, I've already run 200 flights of stairs in 4 seconds.
Yep.
So taking out the trash is so easy at this point. That was a keystone habit for you.
Yep.
In your fitness journey. Both effective, that it gave you more energy and whatever. But also, it was so hard, it was so big that everything else paled in comparison.
Well, and I would say even drives with my kids in the morning. I want my kids to be respectful, kind. I want them to think about good things and be generous and have all these things.
Yeah.
But how do you teach, like if I take those all on at once, right? And I try to just make sure that but if every morning we have statements that we say and we have a song that we sing and they hear this values every morning, it's not that it's like the only thing I have to do, but it creates conversations later. It creates moments later where they're repeating back things that we've said every morning. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden it's like, I'll hear them say like, oh, this is hard, but we do hard things, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, we do. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden they're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And so I love that concept. I completely latched onto it because in my mind, it is like, because he says it multiple times where he's like, he had to kind of figure out what those keystone habits were to even unlock the rest, because he said he like wanted to read the Bible in a year. You know what I mean? And he like sat out and he started and then he like forgot half the mornings. And then it was like, oh, well, I need to use my physical Bible. Like that was the keystone. It was like, get the phone. The phone was not going to help. It was like, you got to use a physical Bible.
Yeah.
Because it was too easy to just flip to the next section. You're not even realize you're changing apps and the notifications came in.
Which about Bible reading, very late in the book, he comes back and talks about that more. And he talks about how it's in the middle of his conversation on social media and our shortening attention spans. He brings up that Philip Yancey, like a famous Christian author, but also just like a really good author, that Philip Yancey claimed that he can't read books anymore because his attention span is so short because of Twitter and skimming news articles and whatever, that he had to like rip himself away from that to start reading books like he did before, that he could like go through a book a night, and he had a certain night that was like, this is for classics. It's like Dante's Inferno and Brothers Karamazov, or however you say that, from Dostoevsky or whatever. And he was like, I couldn't do that anymore because I was trying to do both. And the multitasking short between like snippets, whatever, it was just hurting my ability to do that. And then talking about how do you get away from that? Well, the one thing is poisoning your ability to do the other. You have to cut out the one thing or hurt the addictiveness of the one thing. So the author brings up that, like, for him, one habit that was really helpful for him is turning off all notifications other than texts and calls. Because he was like, all they are is a dopamine hit that somebody liked my tweet on Twitter, on X or whatever. And he was like, I don't need to know that. That doesn't help my life. In fact, in the cycle of addiction, it doesn't bring me joy, but it keeps me trapped. That, like, the way all addiction works, he's talking about this late in the book, is that that the very beginning of it, you've talked about this before. It goes from, where are those three words?
It goes from
magic.
It's like effectiveness into.
I thought it was magic to medicine to misery. Something like that. Magical to medicinal
it's medicinal.
Miserable.
Medicinal to what is it? No, it's magical
to medicinal
to misery, and
miserable.
then it's like, I forget what the last one is, but yeah.
So he was pretty much talking about that cycle, how at the beginning, this study with rats or whatever, he was like, they liked it. It gave him a hit of dopamine. But then it was medicinal. It wasn't about feeling good. It was about avoiding feeling bad. That the not relapse, the withdrawal sickness, the dope sickness was so bad that you have to keep doing it to avoid that bad feeling. And then it's miserable because you're always feeling bad and you only get those temporary moments of relief by doing that. And he was like, that's true for these rats and dopamine. That's true for human adults and, honestly, human teenagers and even human kids with pornography usage and with eating and drinking. I drink or eat when I'm bored. What is that? I don't want to feel bad bored. So I need to feel momentarily good by eating. And he was like, all of these cycles are addiction that are trapping us in this cycle.
Well, and he had this line in there somewhere where it says the newest commodity in the entire world, the commodity of today is attention. And so it's like whatever we give our attention to, that's what everyone's fighting for. And so he said that no's become necessary for freedom because we're giving no's to attention that then lead to our freedom to give our attention to things that we want to. And I really like that concept of, like, recognizing that what he's basically drawing to, what Yancey's drawing to, all this stuff, is that our attention has gotten so commoditized that we don't even have control of where we give it or get to give it, or choose to give it.
He had in that Yancey conversation with that author, he talked about how Facebook and Twitter and whatever, he brought up a former president of Facebook and then a current executive at Facebook, both pretty much saying the same thing, that like it's out there to take as much attention from you as it can. And he said they're not inherently evil for doing that. They're just your average business.
Yep.
What can we do to maximize profit in every area? And that's all they're doing. And that causes evil. Yep. That causes people to be trapped in addiction. But it's not because they want you to suffer. It's because they want to make money. And so he was talking about how like they are laser focused on your attention. And it creates this addiction that makes that. And this gets into a conversation that maybe it's in the last 20 pages of the book. And if so, I'm so sorry. But Christian theologians for a long time who have talked about sin, talk about it in two categories.
Yep.
And if you grew up like me and grew up in the non-denominational Christian Church of Christ, or generally just non-denominational overall and not very charismatic movement of churches, you'll be frustrated that you never heard this before. But theologians who talk about sin from a biblical theology perspective talk about it with the penalty of sin, which we've all heard every Good Friday. The legal kind of language. Jesus traded his righteousness for your sinfulness, took your punishment, and you take his blessing, whatever. But also the power of sin. So in the Bible, sin is defined just as missing the mark. And so it isn't you hit this anti-mark. It isn't that you hit this, you fired your arrow and you hit the 10 Commandments on number 4, the Sabbath, or honoring your father and mother or whatever. And so you're sinful. It's that you didn't hit the sinner. You didn't hit God's like will, God's plan for your life, which sounds vague, but I mean like loving the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Wanting to go to heaven because God's there. Like you missed that kind of mark. And so it's sinful. Well, addiction and habits and whatever pull us so easily away. And there's penalty for missing that mark, but also there's power in missing that mark that keeps you missing that mark. So the Bible talks about sin as breaking the law. It also talks about sin as slavery a lot.
Yeah.
So much. Paul in the New Testament talks about sin as slavery a lot. Apollos begins Hebrews 12 with, so since we have such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off every shackle that so easily entangles. That's slavery language. And when we talk about sin and slavery, addiction is the easiest thing that comes up. That like the cycle we just talked about, magical, medicinal, miserable, that like people are trapped in sin. And yes, it is continually missing the mark. So maybe there's some fault of their own in there, some like evil that they have a due punishment penalty for, but also they're trapped against their will to some extent. Like they've fallen so deep in the pit and it's just continually grabbing them and pulling them down.
Yeah.
And they are fighting for their life to like not be killed by it. And so every moment is fighting against the power of this sin over them. That's why I love this Habits book so much.
Yeah.
Is that it's like, it's helping illuminate not just the penalty for sin, but the power of sin. That like we as Christians can so often think like, oh, I don't curse that much and I don't wear graphic, vulgar t-shirts and I don't go out stabbing and murdering people. I'm not that bad. I don't sin that much, but I bet I do sometimes and I just don't know it. And so I'll confess to the Lord every once in a while, or like, oh, I still need Jesus. I'm not perfect, but I'm pretty close. And we'll miss the mark on, hey, actually, you're addicted to a ton of stuff. It's just stuff that everybody's pretty cool about.
Yeah, one of the phrases that he had in there that stuck out to me, I don't know if it caught you, but I full on laughed when he said it. He's like, why are we all just so terrible at just being apple biters all the time? And I laughed because I was like, that is so true. And his concept in there is what you've just been talking about. It's like we have this pull to go back and repeat
Yeah.
all the same mistakes from the garden, where we're still wanting to go to the tree that only promises and underdelivers over and over and over again. And I think the addictive idea, as someone that has, openly said, like, I have an addictive personality. I have like a natural, like, good and bad. Like, I lose a bunch of weight. I didn't not go to the gym for like months at a time. And, that's awesome because it's a positive thing. But I also had like a counselor going like, hey, just so you know, you're like leaning into this workout stuff almost in a way where like you're going there to get your drug. You know what I mean? And I'm like, gosh, dang it. And then the food thing, I had to take a break from counting calories because I was starting to limit even good foods in my life because I knew how much they, I'm like, oh, I can't eat that because
can't eat peanut butter.
Yeah.
Like a natural whatever peanut butter.
Or do like homemade pasta with like good sauce and like stuff. And I'd be like, nah, it's too many calories. And in my mind, I was justifying it because of the calories, but in really what I was doing was just saying like, oh, the calories make you fat. And it's like, no, that's not what makes you fat. Overeating, overindulging, eating when you're bored, eating when you're not actually hungry, eating, that's what actually can lead, to that type of stuff. And then on top of that, I'm like, is getting fat the thing that I'm avoiding, or is it being healthy that I'm chasing? Yeah. And it's like when you start to realize that you're chasing not being the negative, that's when you're like, no, I need to stop this. I'm going to be healthy, and I'm healthy even if I eat this pasta. It's okay. And that's what I loved about what he said in one of the middle sections where he talked about like, you can't just stop something that you want to do. You have to replace it.
Yeah.
And
I've always known this with music and musicians. That's my easiest context for it. But really, this applies to everybody in all circumstances. And the easiest way you see it is starting a new job. Or if you're in school, starting a new subject or a new tech school, whatever, a new skill. Starting a new job is so hard because none of it is habit yet. He has this whole conversation early in the book, maybe like a third of the way through or earlier, where he's talking about how habit, willpower, and making choices exhaust us. And we all have a limited amount of willpower.
It's a really good
Some
section.
people are born with more, some people are born with less, but it's okay. Everybody's born with a limited amount, and it's like a muscle. Everybody can work that muscle out and get more willpower, but you will still have a limited amount.
Yep.
But habits are like free choices.
Yep.
They are things that you do that you don't have to exert willpower on because you're doing it on autopilot. You know that to be true from starting a new job. You've never felt a longer 8 hours in your life than the first day at a new job, meeting people you haven't met before, learning to do tasks super slowly. You don't have a habit built up, muscle memory to like get through them quick. But then 5 years into that job, the difference between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. is like 40 minutes. It's like flying by. And that's the kind of power that there is in habits. And what he's trying to point out is all of your bad habits are well worn in and are so powerful because you're not making choices to do or not do them. Talks about people wanting to eat healthier. So you go to the grocery store. But because you're going to the grocery store, it is so automatic for you to pick up that 12-pack of Dr. Pepper and that this and that food and snack and whatever because it's a habit, because you've done it every time for years and years. It's you have to think 4 times as hard against doing that.
Well,
so you don't accidentally do it because it's a habit.
And that's the thing that I always loved about Peterson when he talks about this type of stuff that interacts exactly with this concept of like telling somebody that you're going to stop drinking or you're not going to drink anymore when you've been drinking for a long time socially or with your friends or, and then all of a sudden it's like when you go out to meals, when you celebrate, how you think about going out and having a good time or what the parties look like. It's like your whole social group almost has to reshape because how you think about what's going to be there, what's going to feel good, what's going to be exciting. It's very similar with food where it's like all of a sudden you start eating healthy and people start suggesting places that don't have healthy options. And you're like, I can't go there anymore. And it really feels hard.
The comedian John Mulaney has a great bit about this. You would think it's from his newest stand-up special, which is about him going to rehab after an intervention that his friends have for him in 2020, like the end of 2020. No, it's from like 15 years before that.
Yeah.
He's like getting off alcohol and going sober, whatever, like 10 or 15 years earlier. And he's talking about going to parties and people just want to offer him alcohol. And he's like, I don't drink. And how awkward they are. He's like, they'll open their fridge and pull out a 4-month-old chicken broth and be, is this good for you? it's like, I'm a human being. What do you offer human beings to drink other than, it's like, how about some pickle juice? Is that good for you? But it is frustrating because it's such a well-worn habit.
Yeah, and that's with anything. It's
that's
with
what
anything.
we offer people.
It's with anything. And like I remember very specifically doing a year without drinking any calories.
Yeah.
And like no calories. So like I could have unsweet tea, black coffee, water, anything that was, and back then I didn't let diet sodas or anything like that onto the market. So it was legitimately just like those three things. But I would go to people's houses and they would offer me not even alcohol, just like what do you
full fat milk,
whatever you want. And it was like, and the options were always just like, no, I'll just take a water.
Yeah.
And to watch somebody just hand you a glass of water when everyone else is drinking like punch or, like some sort of soda or like this special drink that's not even alcoholic. It's just a special drink for the party.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, just water's fine. Like they would almost feel like they've let you down in some way. They're like, I'm sorry, we weren't prepared for you.
Water's the backup.
And after a while, it really was like a change for me where I didn't think about it anymore. It didn't bother me. It didn't worry. I think why there was another line that I really enjoyed that I think was worth discussing because here's the thing about these types of books. Like sometimes he just drops wisdom or like drops a thought. And like I had to pause and just be like, I just like that thought. And it's not even necessarily, and he had this thing about banquet values versus eulogy values. Did you catch that line?
Which is something you've talked about
I
before.
loved that. I'd never heard it said like that before though. And I was like, I love that. And the idea of what is celebrated at like a banquet where you're still alive and where people like, praise you for what the world would say is an accomplishment is not the same thing that's celebrated after you die.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, dude. And that's what he was talking about. What you should be pursuing with your willpower, with your self-control is eulogy values.
Yeah.
What would be valued at your funeral. Yeah. And man, that hit me hard. I was like, and that truthfully is what I got out of this book was like pursuing things that I know that if I was gone, I would want people to think and not just think about me, to feel like that was who I really was, right?
Yeah.
Like that's that to me just was like the crux of like this book would be worth it. I could see somebody like Will reading this and just absolutely loving it.
Well, this book is for you. You should read it.
100%. I really think it would be the crux of it. I could see someone like Hunter reading this and really, really enjoying it. Honestly, any of I'm like thinking like 10 or 12 names that have popped up or been around or have possibly. This is one of those like.
This is foundational.
It really is like something that if you read this, you would probably finish this and go, dang it, now I got to do it.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like you would legitimately be like, it doesn't even matter what you're aiming for.
Yeah.
Like it would just be like, I got to try something.
I just want to set out the roller coaster of Christian maturity and formation that I've seen in my own life.
Yeah.
And I want to set it out to show how good this book is and how good these concepts are, how helpful it can be. So when I was growing up, I was a kid in church and learning about Bible stories, Old Testament, David and Goliath and whatever, Abraham and the promise and whatever. Growing up and doing that. And then I got into like middle school, high school, and then they're talking a lot more about virtues and reading your Bible and praying. And then I got into Bible college, and there's so much good that was in Bible college. But there was this like elitist attitude that I fell into so quick. I'm really embarrassed to say how quickly I fell into it. But this elitist attitude on like, on saying true facts that were unhelpful. So saying like, amount of time in prayer or amount of Sundays with church attended isn't going to earn your way into heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wholeheartedly agree.
Mm-hmm.
Amount of books of the Bible you've read or amount of time you spent reading the Bible, like won't like earn your way into heaven, whatever. Stop being so legalistic about it. And you know what happened? Even though that's fully true, like I work at a church, so church attendance is still pretty high up for me. But as I worked my way through Bible college, I'm using the Bible for these assignments. I'm doing whatever. Yep. But it's whittled away the like drive to read the Bible on my own.
Yep.
And so Bible college ends and Bible reading and prayer start to dwindle to like deep, low places. So infrequent. Only as a like in case of emergency, break the glass, start praying, because I was so bought into the veiled truth that no, amount of time in prayer does not earn your way into heaven. But yes, amount of time in prayer does pretty well correlate to like closeness with God.
Yeah.
And so I remember like even my youth pastor growing up would be like, he'd ask a question at a youth lesson or whatever, and then he'd say it's one of those church answers to like belittle it a little bit, but to be like, yeah, this is a really simple answer. So our standard answer for like, he'd ask a question and say it's one of those church answers. We'd be like, Jesus, Bible, Moses, prayer, God. And he'd be like, one of those. He'd be like, yeah. And, but really like we've in super high brainy academic Christianity, no, there is no legally required legalistic amount of Bible reading or prayer. But yeah, this book brings up those are keystone habits.
Yep.
Do you want to be a person who knows God? Like as the scripture threatens, Lord, didn't we do all this stuff in your name? Didn't we cast out demons and prophesy and level mountains or whatever? And he's like, go away from me. I never knew you. Yep. And you're like, oh, how do I get around that? I don't know. Bible reading and prayer. Yep. The easy church answers.
Well, it's like, yep. And you're dead right. And I was reading this last night, and
don't belittle this.
I had somebody that came or that texted me and said, hey, I need to talk, which in pastoral terms normally is like my life is falling apart and I need help. And they're like, can I come over? And so this person texts, and I, tell Katrina, and I set the lawn chairs up out in the driveway because that's just kind of where I do some of my best work until it gets too cold. And the person showed up, and they want to get baptized, and I was like, it was a total cool thing. So like last time we're just sitting out there, and I won't put this person on blast, even though I'm really, really, really proud of them. But the thing that I said immediately was like, okay, so I know you're making the decision. This is really cool. And like, I want this for you. And there's so much you're going to learn. But I said, I just need you to know from here on out, the more you know, the more you realize it's hard to do all that you're going to learn. Right. And I said, but the key to all of this is really simple. It's just keep the person that's teaching you things close. I was like, as long as you can keep the person, and that's the Holy Spirit and Jesus, as close as you can, to keep God as close as you can. That's the thing. No matter how much you learn, no matter how much you understand the Bible, and how much more you get, like your faith never doesn't need this. Like it will always need. And so I said, my first suggestion to you is like, I know you have a little bit of drive into work. I said, just stay quiet and listen and ask some questions. And I said, just try to keep it as opportunistic for you and God to have just some space to start your day. And you know what he did? He looked at me and goes, I just started doing that like 2 months ago. Yeah. And I do it every morning. And it's part of why I made this decision. Yeah. It's because I started to feel like I had to do it. Like we're close. And I was like, booyah. Because I was reading this book and I'm like, there it is. Like he started.
I'm so glad he started that before the rapture happened a couple days ago.
Terrible joke. But I love it. I love it because it connected a lot of the stuff that you're saying where, I would say I wasn't an elitist in college, but I was much more in the camp of like, I don't care how much you know, how well do you love? Like, I don't care how much, like, exegesis, like, how are you learning how to be kind? Like, I don't care how much, like, I was more in that camp. And I realize now, like, in order to be kind, in order to be loving, you need to be connected to the kind one. Exactly. Learn from the kind one. Like, be loving.
That's why I love John Mark Comer's book, Practicing the Way. Yeah. Honestly, I don't love that book in the style it's written. Yeah, it's like 250 pages, 51 chapters, and I'm like, ugh, it's like tweets. Yep. It's too short. Give me more. But he talks so much about discipleship is apprenticeship. Mm-hmm. It is learning on the job and emulating that person in their professional skills, in their relational skills, in their habits in their personal life. Like it's miming an entire person, not just taking a class once a week from a person or whatever. Yeah. Love that. And that gets into habits and formation and whatever. Yep. So here's the bottom line for this whole book. Number 1, read it. Or if you're like both of us, listen to the audiobook while you drive or while you run. It's a really good
audiobook. It's easy. It's easy to listen.
Easy to follow. It's good. But what you have to realize is that you can't have enough willpower to do all the right things. You have to set up habits. And he talks about, I'm going to sneeze. He talks about, there we go. I have a habit of sneezing. It's called allergies. He talks about how the metric that's been thrown out before is like, it takes 21 days to set up a new habit. And he's like, that's a flat lie.
Yep.
That's from a study that says for very simple behaviors and actions, it takes 21 days. And he was like, the research from that study and other studies shows it takes way longer.
90 days.
Yeah, 2-3 months, depending on the habit, to set up the habit. But the way that people have good habits in their lives is they've used their willpower over 2 or 3 months to build up that habit or a couple habits, but hopefully one at a time.
Yep.
And finally it latches on. And then now they have all this extra willpower left over because it's become a habit and they're not using up all their willpower.
Yep.
That's why it's hard at the beginning because it's so easy because you're using no decision-making power, no willpower to do your bad habits.
Yep.
You have to use a lot of decision-making and willpower to do your good habits. Once you do that, you're freed up again to then do the next thing. That's why it's so hard. That's why it takes consistency and hard work and why after a week or 2, you're not done. You got to keep pushing, but it'll get there if you actually do it, if you actually carve out the time. But it's so hard right now because of the habits of social media usage and the short time attention span, whatever. But use the power of habits to develop these, like you said, eulogy virtues. I want to, the week they were putting this podcast out, I put out a Facebook post about my youth pastor growing up who's has cancer right now, and this is probably the last week of his life. He's in his early mid 40s. He has 3 daughters, but he's been a youth pastor for a long time and just been a Christian for a long time and exerted his Christianity in his relationships with other people. So as a selling point for eulogy values, which are like, here are his character traits versus banquet values. Here's his job. Here's his whatever.
Yeah.
This is what I wrote. I'm going to skip the first part where I say he has cancer. But he's going on hospice this week. So I said, if you don't know Matt, I can only describe him as the following: brave and wise, impossibly cool, and a safe place for the weird kid. Please pray for comfort for him and his family, for strength in the days ahead, and for the literal thousands of people, and I'm not exaggerating.
No, not exaggeration.
Thousands of people who have been impacted by his kindness to share their stories, love his family, and grow deeper in the faith he shared with them. If you know or appreciate me, I was one of those kids. I can't promise to be impossibly cool, but his example helps me to be brave and a safe place for the weird kids in my own town. That's
the values.
I don't know exactly, without a shadow of a doubt, what habits he curated and whatever, but it was obvious from the way he lived his life and the way he shared his intention and his time that those values are true about him. Because I remember times where he was overly gracious and kind with people. I also remember times in like leadership structures where he was frustrated and like gonna stick it to the man and like be like, this unjust thing is not okay. I don't want to overshare, but like he was brave when he needed to be and stood up to people when he needed to. And he was very kind with hurting or lonely or weird people.
Yeah, we were just reading in Romans this morning, Levi and I and Keen Bean, and it talks about this list, right? Of like, if you're a teacher, teach. If you're a leader, lead. If you're and what's funny is the end of that list gets like super, like you just said. It's like, if you're kind, be kind. And then like it ends with like these characteristic traits. And I pointed that out to him. I said, what's funny is like people think that like my teaching is like the thing that like maybe has had the most impact at Kingsway. I preach every Sunday. And I said, what's funny though is I feel like the opportunities for me to be kind way outweigh the opportunities for what my teaching is going to do. Yeah. And I feel like that's actually the muscle that I feel like I've worked the most. It's just trying to be overtly kind. And I'm not perfect at it, but I recognize that is something that sometimes people have not practiced or worked on.
And your teaching is the banquet value, but your kindness is the eulogy value.
Exactly. People would celebrate my teaching, but I'm probably more proud of how kind I try to be. And I want my kids to be kind. It's something that I tell them and teach them. Well, and whenever you talk about somebody's impact and you recognize that their impact has been greater than just accomplishment, right? It is an investment in another person. That's when you start to see kingdom work, because that's ultimately what Jesus did. It's ultimately what the kingdom's all about. We build each other up, we spur each other on, we sharpen each other, we do everything out of love, because love brings life. And this book was incredibly challenging because I think it is something, like I said, you could read once a year and you'd probably be like, all right, what's the new boat? Yeah. What do I got to do with Jesus that he's calling me to? And you know what, truthfully, out of all that we've read this year, I would be most pushed to say this is the one you probably need to read.
Yeah.
I mean, truthfully, just start here. It's that... it's the thing that I'm like, I really like this book, and I'm also like, I'm going to have to like think about how I'm going to implement it.
There's a book similar to this that I would love to read in the future. I don't know if we'll read it this year, but it's a classic on my list of books that we should put on the books that I would give to a Christian who wants to grow in their faith. It's You Are What You Love by James K. Smith.
I've heard of that one.
Really good book. It's similar to this in identifying the like habits and the things you spend your time on, whatever. A little less practical and like, hey, try this tip or try this thing, but more like ideologically, I don't know, scrutinizing, helping you put the systems around the stuff that like,
Well, as far as this, I hope you'll go out and pick it up. I know we'll be doing some Sunday seminars here.
Sunday study
halls.
There we go.
Very soon on Romans. I know we're going to be putting some of those out and trying to catch up on that. Hopefully we get some of those going. I know those are exciting ones as well. As always, if you think somebody else would like this book and need to hear or learn about it a little bit, or maybe you just set this as something you're going to go read the book and then come back and listen, and leave a comment if something that stuck out, or if you have a question, or if there's something else that we can do. Always love that. As always, leave a rating, more towards Ryan's 5 stars if you can. And I think as far as I can tell, this is like one of those books that I feel like I'm going to need to revisit and read again before too long. So
I want to make sure we talk about the next book. I'm between these two. Have you seen either of those? Do you have an opinion between them? I think while we're reading Romans,
I like the strange.
Yeah, okay. So our next book, glad we talked about this. Our next book for this next month is going to be Strange Religion: How the First Christians Were Weird, Dangerous, and Compelling by Nijay Gupta.
That sounds great to me.
It's gonna be really good. The audiobook's about 6 hours and 46 minutes.
That's perfect.
But also with a title like that, I feel like I'm gonna be drawn in.
Well, dude, and Stranger Things comes out here before too long, so it's right on brand.
This is to set it up. So we're gonna be reading this during October, and try to put out an episode at the beginning of November. That'll set you up for Stranger Things season 5, the beginning of it coming out over Thanksgiving weekend.
It's gonna be stinking awesome. Well, as always, thanks so much, and till next time, have a great and glorious day in the Lord. We'll see you later.
See ya.